What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome to our show. It is Tuesday, February 16th, and we're getting into doing a lot of things here. We have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to do news until we run out of news, and then we're going to open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, and opinions. I think Ken is still in our control room. Oh, no, Mike is back. Okay. They were having trouble getting people in and out because of the weather down in Texas. It is a major, major storm. It's being described as unprecedented, and apparently 9 people are dead. 5 million are without power as Winter Storm Uri sweeps the nation. And here's where it really shows the lack of foresight in government, and especially in the global warming cult, the green movement, because the reason Texas is in trouble right now is quite simple. They were given lots and lots of taxpayer subsidies to move into solar panels and wind turbines, okay? Now the wind turbines are frozen solid. They are too cold to move, and the solar panels are covered with snow. And when they go to turn on those natural gas valves to light up the furnace, nothing is coming out. And it shows a lack of forethought. What happens if all of this wonderful new green technology doesn't work out, as it clearly is not doing here? And energy, like money, has to be diversified, something that we don't see coming from the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There was also apparently a tornado that hit North Carolina. There's actually been a few tornadoes. The one in over there in North Carolina apparently tore up a bunch of houses here. Over in Europe, snow blankets the Acropolis in Athens as the European colds, basically it's record cold over there. And it's so cold, it shut down parts of the city COVID-19 vaccination and some of the public transport. And I wouldn't put away that snow shovel just yet, because there's another cross-country winter storm heading in. It's called Viola, and it will bring significant snow and damaging ice to parts of the South, the Midwest, and the East through the later part of the week. Now, we don't have snow falling right now this instant. They're saying we're not going to have snow until tomorrow night. But after that, it's going to really come on in there. Now, we got about 5-6 inches. I really haven't measured it yet, but it's definitely deep out there. Okay, let's talk about politics now. Let's talk about the aftermath of the impeachment of Obama that was out there. And there's an article that's coming out of Station Gossip that is going along with what we're all speculating, that following this second acquittal, Trump is going to re-emerge and relaunch himself onto the political scene. He is, in all probability, going to become the new standard bearer for the GOP party. Those who don't like that are probably going to break off and form their own new Republican Party. Maybe we can call them the paleocons versus the neocons, and they'll promptly disappear here. But they're asking, is Trump actually going to hold out an olive branch to the current Republican Party and all those members of the GOP who basically stabbed him in the back or threw him under the bus, or whatever the description you want to put in there for their behavior during this whole impeachment? Actually, the last 4 years, really, if you think about it. Now, Illinois Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger has been disowned by his entire family for opposing Donald Trump. Apparently, 11 of his relatives signed a handwritten letter calling him a disappointment to God and Lou Dobbs and a member of the Devil's Army. And they're saying this is a stain on their family's name for backing the impeachment of Donald Trump. Those GOP members of Congress who supported the impeachment, they are definitely facing a major backlash. Over in North Carolina, Republicans are getting ready to censure Senator Burr for voting to convict Trump in what they see as an unconstitutional impeachment trial. And of course it was, if for no other reason than the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was not presiding. Then there's that small issue of having a process to remove somebody from office after they left office. Now, Lindsey Graham is already threatening to impeach Kamala Harris if the GOP gets a majority in the House in 2022, basically because of her support of this fund to provide bail money to Black Lives Matter protesters who were arrested for acts of violence. And he's saying this is much closer to the definition of incitement than anything Trump did. And so, yes, Kamala Harris should be impeached. Okay. GOP lawmakers are apparently continuing to support Mitch McConnell and Liz Cheney over their pro-Trump base. We could actually see the Republican Party split, which means it would be, very weak. These two new parties would only be half as strong as the Democrats, not even counting the election fraud. So we could wind up with three parties, which I think it would be great to go back to multiple parties. I don't want to see a single party nation like the Soviet Union. And I think the two-party system has really shown its weaknesses and flaws. I think it's time we go back to having a multitude of parties, and really they have to work for the vote of the people rather than just run a lot of advertising and then buy the election machines. Okay, you're going to love this one. This is a bit of a flashback. This is coming out of townhall.com. There are newly declassified documents that confirm former FBI Director James Comey lied about the Christopher Steele dossier. This is the dossier, sometimes called the P dossier, that claimed that Donald Trump had done all kinds of nasty things while visiting in Russia, involving a hotel room and multiple hookers and a bunch of other things like that. And the FBI basically said, "Oh yeah, we're absolutely sure," and they signed the FISA warrant based on this Steele dossier. Comey actually wrote an email to then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper saying the dossier couldn't be corroborated, and yet they relied on it to get FISA warrants. Or FISA warrants, rather, I'm staying corrected, to spy on Trump and his associates. Boy, I wouldn't want to be part of the Lincoln Project right now. It is just getting worse and worse over there. A second minor has come forward to accuse the Lincoln Project's John Weaver of sexual harassment just weeks after the first accusation involving 21 others, including a 14-year-old boy. And they are claiming that Weaver solicited sex in exchange for career advice. And the New York Times reported on January 31st, John Weaver was in communication with a 14-year-old, and that was the first allegation made that he was sexually harassing a minor. Another story on the same topic coming out of the Daily Mail in Great Britain, talking about the Lincoln Project's toxic workplace. Women were sidelined. Young men were referred to as wizards. It was basically described as a culture of infighting. So that's not looking really good either. And Trump has found that $50 million from the Lincoln Project went to the founders' companies. So they were getting rich. I think yesterday we reported on how one of the founders just bought $1 million home out in Utah. And if you know Utah, $1 million buys you a lot of home. Okay, story coming on out from stationgossip.com. pointing out that, Biden had this 308,000 ballot drop in Fairfax County, Virginia on election night. It was a single drop of ballot late at night, and it accounted for 73% of all of Biden's votes in Fairfax County. And there does not seem to be an innocent explanation for that one at all. Another article on the same topic. This is from Your Destination Now. Why are Arizona's Maricopa County Board of Supervisors not in jail? Because they are not handing over the 2020 election ballots, despite court and state government ordered audits. They're just saying, no, you can't have them. I think it was yesterday we were talking about how, it could have been Friday, about these AccuVote voting machines up in New Hampshire. An audit found that they subtracted 300 votes from every single Republican candidate, just across the board, just sliced them right off here. Story coming on out of Station Gossip. Previous study on the AccuVote voting machines like those used in New Hampshire found serious flaws in the ability to steal votes with little risk of detection. Our election system is a joke. The rest of the world is laughing at us for this. All right, there is a group now called Our Vote Matters. It is suing Facebook, Dominion, Mark Zuckerberg, certain state officials, and others for infringing upon the right to vote, to assemble, and to speak freely. They are going class action, which means you can sign on to the lawsuit as well. The article is linked to whatreallyhappened.com. Another little piece of good news. This is coming from sos.georgia.government. The Georgia State Election Board is starting to refer voter fraud cases for prosecution. And they have counted 35 cases of election law violations to the Attorney General or local district attorneys for criminal prosecution. And Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who was up to his neck in the vote fraud scandal, is now out there trying to polish his image by saying election fraud is not tolerated in Georgia. He unfortunately is chairman of the 5-member state election board, which means he's in a very, very good position to interfere with those prosecutions and cover it all up. They are the most lied to people on earth. Republican former Senator David Perdue in Georgia wants to get back into the U.S. Senate after losing his seat last month in a runoff race against Democratic rival and now Senator Jon Ossoff. Well, David Perdue has filed to run for the Senate in Georgia again, this time against Senator Raphael Warnock. So he's not giving up. Good for him. We've all heard repeatedly about the We the People petitioning website over at the White House website. And there were quite a few times when they would raise the threshold, the number of people who had to sign a petition for the government to respond. There were a few cases where the petitions exceeded the signature threshold and nothing was done. But in another sign that they aren't really paying attention to us anyway, the Biden administration has now completely removed the We the People petition website from the White House website. It is just gone. And the link, petitions.whitehouse.gov, now goes to the White House main website. And of course, it's not like politicians have to worry about what the voters care about anymore, not after this last election. Should have taught them a lesson, go ahead and vote, but don't expect anything from it. Story coming on out from Jacob Magazine, jacobinmag.com. I don't know why they have such tiny fonts there. The Biden era is witnessing a return of the military-industrial complex. And this article is talking about how Biden has brought into his administration a whole bunch of neocon war hawks, that he's talking tough about countries like Syria, going back into Afghanistan, going back deeper into Iraq, and of course everybody is still drooling over a potential war with Iran, let alone Russia and China, which are still out there being deemed as major threats to the American way of life. All right, let's talk about COVID-19. It's still out there. A lot of stuff is happening there. Yesterday, we were talking about this revelation over in Great Britain that patients with learning disabilities were being given do not resuscitate orders during the second wave of the pandemic. And to nobody's surprise, this has spiked just a furious backlash, as well it should. I mean, this reeks of eugenics and getting rid of the useless eaters, George. And so people are very, very angry. They had this same scandal last year, and the Care Quality Commission said end of last year that inappropriate DNRs had caused potentially avoidable deaths, meaning they could have been saved, but they just let them go. All right, current numbers. This is coming out of Global Research up in Canada. 600, pardon me. Okay. 653 deaths and 12,044 other injuries have been reported following the COVID vaccine. This, according to the latest CDC data. This is not some fringe website like whatreallyhappened.com, just making up these numbers out of thin air. This is coming from the CDC itself. That's a lot of deaths and a lot of injuries, and some of these injuries are long-term. And as of February 4th, rather, that's when these numbers come into play. 653 deaths, 12,697 total adverse effects. Oh. Another little scandal brewing on the horizon, this one coming from the postmillennial.com. More than $100 billion, that's with a B, in COVID aid has been misspent, stolen, or swindled. And they're saying that there is been this $630 billion in disbursements from the CARES Act funds, and more than $100 billion of it has been misspent. Actually, $63 billion alone was misspent in the state of California. And according to NBC News, the scale of the fraud in the unemployment program created by the CARES Act has reached a staggering level. Gee, I wonder if it's the legal or illegal immigrants who are trying to take advantage of that program. Down under, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has ordered a mandatory 3-day lockdown for Auckland, New Zealand. That's New Zealand's largest city, after 3 people, count them, 3, tested positive for COVID-19. Another little side effect is showing up. This is being reported over at Scoopy Web. French doctors conducted MRI scans on 129 severely ill COVID-19 patients. They found evidence of eye nodules in 9 of these hospitalized individuals. Apparently, the inflammation is triggered by the virus. That's what they're saying. And once again, this year, Mardi Gras is being not canceled completely, but definitely tamped down because of the COVID scare. They're going to be closing the bars. Bourbon Street is going to be barricaded. And between that and all of these cold weather storms coming on in, New Orleans just isn't what it used to be. Amazing here. All right, we're coming up on a commercial break here, and when we come on back, we're going to hit the international news. So stay tuned, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Republic Broadcasting Network needs your continuing support to go on keeping Americans informed so they can make good choices. And obviously today we need to buy ourselves a snowblower. So for those of you who would like to help out, There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get involved now. The postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And don't forget, the Front Sight Firearms deal is back on. You're going to hear a spot for that later on from John Stadmiller. And then finally, if you send in a mail-in donation for $100 or more, include your T-shirt size and a return address, and you will get one of these spiffy RBN T-shirts. The network thanks you. All right, getting on back to the international news here. Multiple rockets hit a U.S. military base and a nearby airport in Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, last night. Initial reports say one civilian contractor was killed, 5 others were wounded, and 1 U.S. soldier was also wounded. 2 other civilians were wounded outside the base. A U.S. military spokesman said more details will follow, and the nationality of the contractor that was killed is not clear at this time. The attack also impacted the Chinese consulate in Erbil. Getting tense over there. There was yet another attack on Damascus by Israel, and 9 non-Syrians died in that attack. The attack supposedly targeted arms depots and killed at least 9 pro-government forces, all identified as non-Syrian, although nobody is sure where they really came from. Now, Israel's attitude is if it moves on the ground in Syria, then it's Iranian and we can kill it. Down in Arkansas, the Arkansas Times has successfully challenged a law that prohibits the state from doing business with companies that boycott Israel. And apparently they filed a lawsuit in 2018. They were represented by the ACLU. They don't take a position on BDS, but it launched the legal challenge after the University of Arkansas Pulaski Technical College refused to sign an advertising contract with the Times unless it signed the pledge. And a U.S. District Court judge dismissed the case in 2019, but last week the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals found the anti-BDS law unconstitutional in a 2-1 decision. So people are starting to fight back against all this nonsense. Another little article, this one is coming out of the original antiwar.com, and it's asking a very good question. Is Biden committing diplomatic suicide over the Iran nuclear agreement? Now, where we are with this is that just prior to the election, Biden was campaigning saying that he was going to go back to this Iran nuclear deal that Trump had unilaterally pulled out of. And everybody said, yeah, that's going to be a good thing, except, of course, for Israel. But ever since Biden has moved into the Oval Office, there seem to be problems and standoffs, and you know, it's looking like it might not actually happen. And of course, it'll be Biden's first failure as president. So Congress is still struggling to pass a COVID relief bill, but the rest of the world is reserving judgment on Biden and his foreign policy until they see what it is he's going to do regarding the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Treaty with Iran. Over in Myanmar, the military is hardening their online censorship campaign. They blocked the internet, then they let it off. Now they've passed a new law that will permit officials to arrest the military's online critics. Internet access in Myanmar was cut off again yesterday. The military is attempting to stifle growing opposition to its rule weeks after a coup ousted the supposedly elected government. Now, the bias in this article is pretty clear. They're on the side of the the government, but the military is insisting the election was massively fraudulent. And frankly, all of these supposedly spontaneous protests that we're seeing in Myanmar against the military look a lot like your standard boilerplate American color revolution. Okay, according to the network analysis company Kentik, internet traffic in and out of Myanmar was reduced to nearly zero early Monday morning. We're going to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and we're talking about the international news. The United States is now trying to de-escalate the situation with Turkey. And it's sort of been, they've been banging foreheads together for a while. Turkey had earlier summoned the U.S. ambassador about a statement on the killing of 13 kidnapped Turks in Iraq. Turkish President Erdogan had lashed out at the State Department's initial hesitance to blame the Kurdistan Workers' Party for the deaths, calling the initial U.S. statement a farce. It's getting really, really tense over there. And Erdogan is a bit of a loose cannon, but then, you know, when you survive a coup d'etat, you tend to think of yourself as immortal. So Turkey is rejecting U.S. demands to keep to itself and is now committing to a troop presence in Libya. Turkey is saying their troop presence will remain in place pending the Libyan government approval and the status of the 2019 Ankara-Tripoli bilateral military agreement. Presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalin confirmed the decision in an interview with state broadcaster TRT. The presence of thousands of Turkish-affiliated troops in Libya is stirring debate about the success of the interim government in the transitional process taking place under the watch of the United Nations. Now, to back up a little bit, the interim government is the imposed from outside junta that was put in place in Libya after their legitimate government was torn down and Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated. That being how the U.S. controls the world. Go into a country, kick up a bunch of trouble, bring down the current government, and install a new obedient puppet regime. And they get to fly their own flags. That's certainly an improvement over the last two world wars, but the end result is the same. Over in Algeria, President Abdelmajid Tebboune is planning to dissolve the parliament and call for an early legislative election, citing an ex-presidential candidate and opposition party, Front des Forces Socialistes, according to the newspaper. Tebboune is preparing to issue a decision to dissolve parliament in the coming days. Doing so would mark the start of elections in the country, which has been swept with nationwide protests and the Iraq movement. Is there any place on earth that isn't in turmoil and violence right now? Because I want to move there. The United States, specifically Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, will meet with members of the world's most powerful military alliance on Wednesday for the first time since joining the Biden administration. Now, NATO meets tomorrow and Thursday to discuss an array of challenges facing the 30-member group, including the fact that some NATO nations are now making stink face at each other, which complicates things. So the virtual meetings will be a glimpse into Joe Biden's foreign policy agenda and comes on the heels of his calls to stand shoulder to shoulder with America's closest allies. And Biden said, when we strengthen our alliances, we amplify our power as well as our ability to disrupt threats before they reach our shores. America cannot afford to be absent any longer on the world stage. And of course, this is in contrast to Donald Trump's America First policy, which did seem to annoy members of NATO. Speaking of NATO, NATO's top general in Europe has declared initial operational capability of the alliance's 5-strong fleet of surveillance drones stationed in Sicily. And the unmanned aircraft and the associated ground crew make up the NATO Allied Ground Surveillance Program. This was started 9 years ago. It cost a whole bunch of money. Its goal is to provide all member countries with an aerial picture of worldwide threats, especially in locations close to alliance borders. Now, the mission-ready proclamation comes after NATO received its fifth and final aircraft for the fleet of modified Northrop Grumman RQ-4D Global Hawks at Sinola Air Force Base last November. I don't know if 5 is really going to do it, but that's just me. Let's talk about the economy for a little while. The Bitcoin hit $50,000. This is a new historic milestone for a crypto price. Those people who bought in early, even on just your first stimulus check, if you put it into Bitcoin, you'd be like 600% up right now. It's amazing. Story coming on out of Station Gossip, and it kind of shows you how we are being over-governed and over-controlled. Apparently, there was a mother having to work the evening shift at a pizza restaurant, and the police arrested her for leaving her children, ages 10 and 2, home alone. And yeah, it's getting almost impossible to be able to live your life without violating some law or regulation somewhere. It's very, very frustrating. Stephen Van Meter is out there with a comment that the GDX weakness is signaling a market crash. So he's adding his voice to all those who are saying there is a downturn on its way. Now, Amazon is recruiting 26 former FBI agents to provide security from and smash the workers' unions. This is like Mattawan all over again. The tech giant is employing services of specialists to collect and monitor information on organized labor. Now, currently, Amazon is facing one of the largest union pushes with more than 6,000 employees in the Amazon Birmingham facility voting to form a union. Now, tech giants are already in the news for providing a diverse range of technology services for the military and supplying law enforcement agencies with state-of-the-art facial recognition software, not to mention handing over your personal data on request without needing a warrant. Now, Amazon is focusing on security by hiring these former FBI agents. And officially, the agents will be dealing with counterfeiting issues, antitrust scrutiny, and work activism pressure. But the insiders are saying this is all about smashing up union representation. Now, as I mentioned last week, I am not a huge fan of unions. Unions were my nemesis during my career in Hollywood. They're very protectionist, it was literally a case of having to be part of a whole new technology revolution to get inside Hollywood, because all the old technology was guarded by the unions. And I remember toward the end there, the unions were trying to grab computer animation and slice it up and say, well, you know, the modelers belong to this union and this guard, and the riggers belong to this, and the texture goes to this union, and just really busting it up all over again. And I'm glad I didn't see that. But that being said, I recognize that in the face of abusive management, unions can and do serve a useful function. And I think we're seeing that happen here at Amazon, which, despite its reputation for great service, has also acquired a reputation for being a very harsh employer. We were talking the other day about the workers being told they will work this 10-hour graveyard shift, or they'll be seeking other employment elsewhere, that kind of a situation. So I wish them a lot of luck. And I'm certainly willing to pay a few more pennies for my Amazon orders for the Amazon workers to get a decent wage and salary, because if they can't make a decent wage and salary, if ordinary workers all across the country can't make a decent wage and salary, how can they pour that money back into the bottom of the economy in order to keep it moving forward? See, that's what a lot of these money junkies don't think about. They want the money to flow all the way to the top and into their pockets, and that's the end of all they can see. But the economy, to keep going, that money at the top has to find its way back down to the bottom as decent wages and salaries so people can work for it, earn it, and go to the store and buy a new large screen TV or a new bicycle or a new AR-15 and keep the economy going. And the more we see the wealth inequality grow in this country, the worse things seem to get. And it does feel like the economy is locking up and that we are, in fact, headed into a worse situation than we saw back in the 1930s. Of course, I didn't see it. I wasn't alive then, but I've seen the photos. Talking about immigration, we mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. Joe Biden plans to release an immigration bill this week that would give 11 million undocumented immigrants an accelerated path to citizenship and expand the refugee program. Now, I have a question. Just for a moment, imagine that you are a legal immigrant to the United States of America, and you are pursuing citizenship by following all the rules and filling out all the paperwork and doing everything that's required to become a legal citizen of the United States. And now, all of a sudden, Biden is going to pass an immigration bill that gives the illegal immigrants, you know, the speed lane right around you. How would you feel about that? I can't imagine that those who are playing by the rules would be very happy about that at all. Kind of reckless here. And especially reckless that they're now putting pressure on American companies to hire immigrants ahead of American citizens. That is really a dumb idea. All righty. Getting into the woke culture and some of the craziness that's going on out there. Over in, well, no, this is right here in the United States, a growing number of woke English teachers are refusing to have Shakespeare in their classroom. We're talking William Shakespeare. And they're saying that Shakespeare promotes racism. I know that's been a criticism against the Merchant of Venice, white supremacy, intolerance, toxic masculinity, and classism. And I mean, really, they are just ripping out the foundations of Western thought or any thought at all. This one really annoys me. It's coming out of Tefasta.com. Up in Oregon, the Department of Education is recommending a new course that claims asking kids to show their work in math class is white supremacy. Let me repeat that one more time. The new position of the Oregon Education Department is that asking students to show their work in math class is white supremacy. That is absurd on the face of it. It really, I mean, the whole point of Common Core was to get math students to show their work. Of course, the way it was shown was not the most efficient and expeditious way of reaching your answer, but at least they were showing the work. Now they're saying, no, showing your work, that's white supremacy. It's amazing here. Over in Britain, and this is a little bit of good news, there's a pair of new government initiatives that will see universities in Great Britain fined if colleges or student bodies attempt to shut down free speech on campuses, and heritage bodies sanctioned if they use funds to advance partisan political movements. And I can hear Israel screaming bloody murder about this already. So the Sunday Telegraph Telegraph reported that the university measure is to be announced this week by the Education Secretary Gavin Williamson, who has previously railed against the rise of wokeism and leftist cancel culture. So a small victory for sanity over there in Great Britain. Another story, this one from blabber.buzz. Down in Mississippi, the Senate has passed legislation that would prevent biological males from competing in women's sporting events. The bill, identified as Senate Bill 2536, passed through the Senate by 34-9 last Thursday without much debate, and there really is not much debate on it. And after it's signed into law, transgender athletes will be prohibited from competing in women's sports competitions at Mississippi schools and universities. And I understand there's about 5 states that are in various stages of implementing similar laws as well. Over in Virginia, their Supreme Court will hear an appeal to block the removal of a statue to Robert E. Lee. So people are pushing back against all of this cultural erasing that we're seeing around us. And story out of WorldNet Daily, lawmakers are asked to pull the plug on a U.S. city's surveillance state. And this is in Baltimore, Maryland, which has a practice of continuously spying on the residents from the air. And the Rutherford Institute is asking the state's House Judiciary Committee to craft a bill that would forbid police from carrying out persistent citywide aerial surveillance on the citizenry. The exception would be circumstances permitted by the Constitution. In other words, you need to have a warrant. I remember when they brought those helicopters to Southern California, and they were just all over the place and peeking into all the windows and you know, with the lights on and everything like that. It was very, very annoying. Story coming on out of ThomasDishon.com. Michigan State police officials are dodging public records obligations by using encrypted messaging apps. So it sounds like they have got something to hide. And certainly the intent is there to conceal what they're supposed to be making public record. So we'll see what happens with that. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back with more news. Welcome back to our show here. Now, over in Missouri, a new bill aims to block federal law if the Biden administration clamps down on guns, which we all know they are getting ready to do. So State Senator Bill Eigel of St. Charles County is promoting a bill in Jefferson City to preserve gun rights if the federal government adds restrictions. The bill, Senate Bill 39, was introduced by State Senator Eric Burleson and would create the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which would nullify any new firearms restrictions from the federal government in Missouri. So this is going to kick off a states' right issue and probably could even be a challenge to the Supremacy Clause. Getting into, I mean, especially with all the snow coming on down here, it's time to talk about human-caused global warming. And story coming out of Breitbart, the Vatican is calling for a responsible, unprecedented collective response to the momentous challenge of climate change. And speaking on behalf of the Pope, Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin said in an online address to the Climate Adaptation Summit that climate change represents one of the principal challenges facing humanity in our day. Okay, well, you know, I always thought the Vatican was all about religion and the Catholics, and, you know, I get very leery when religious leaders wade into areas of scientific inquiry, because I remember what happened to Galileo, Giordano Bruno, etc. ad infinitum. Bill Gates has bought himself a new yacht. It cost $860 million, giving him bragging rights over other ultra-rich seafarers. And what makes this yacht unique, it's hydrogen powered. And so, he's going to sail around in this thing and prove that he is morally superior to everybody else because he has got this, hydrogen powered ship. Now, the custom build is based on blueprints for the 372-foot vessel Aqua, publicized at the Monaco Yacht Show last year by Dutch marine architects Sino. It said the plans took inspiration from the lifestyle of a discerning, forward-looking owner. So Gates is a regular super yacht holiday maker, but has not owned one, preferring to rent for summer trips around the Mediterranean. Now that's interesting because I saw a story, I think it was about a year ago, that Gates had bought an old research ship. Triangular shaped hull, very stable in rough water, and had converted that to personal use. So who knows what's going on with the lifestyles of the rich and vapid. This is really kind of interesting. Dubai announced last week. Oh, okay. We got to take a break for station identification. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2, the phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. The lines are filling up. But before we take phone calls, I want to finish this story because it's kind of interesting. This is coming out of Blacklisted News, and it is reporting that Dubai last week announced the creation of a space court to settle commercial disputes as the United Arab Emirates, which is also sending a probe to Mars, builds its presence in the space sector. Sooner or later, there are going to be conflicts of interest, and Dubai is basically saying they'll have this tribunal based at the Dubai International Financial Center courts. This is an independent, British-inspired arbitration center based on common law. So they're getting they're going to be space lawyers. Oh, boy, what a scary thought that's going to be. All right, let's start taking some phone calls. We're going to start with Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, good day to you, Michael. First off, Mike, I just want to talk about how's this global warming thing working out for everybody. All these criminals talk about global warming. The windmills in Texas are all froze up.
Yep.
Here in South Florida, we had the 7 inches of rain today. The rain,
yep.
It was unrelenting rain here. I don't know what's going on with this weather, but it's there's no global warming. I mean, this is all nonsense. These nincompoops with this, and then the same thing with this Corona nonsense. But Mike, I got to get on to what I wanted to talk about. When I heard this guy yesterday from Carolina going after me, attacking me about something I've been saying for a long time. Well, this guy who said he likes socialism so much. Why doesn't he go down to Nicaragua and Nicaraguans can bring in 3 Nicaraguans into Carolina? He can go down there and they'll switch out him for 3 of them. That's exactly what they can do here because, this guy says that there's this country's so bad. And, well, like the great caller from he made a great call, the guy from Dan, he was absolutely right. If he wants a constitution, go follow Liberia. Go to Liberia. If the Constitution is so important to you, you got a place called Liberia. So this guy's here attacking me again, and he attacks one guy from Jersey. Don't even call anymore, I guess. But I'm not going to be like that because I'm going to tell him like it is, whether you like it or not. Tough titty, said the kitty. So here's the deal, Mike. This guy saying all these immigrants are all great. Well, no, they should be going to South America where they already speak their language. It's costing the taxpayers of this country hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach these people to speak English. And they don't care about our Constitution. They don't care about our founding fathers. They could give a dang less, Mike, about Indians. And when I hear your last hour when you're talking, Mike, about immigration with this bumbling buffoon wanting 11 million, I don't give him permission to do that. I'm in the majority. I'm a majority white male. You don't give him permission. All your other callers ain't giving this bumbling buffoon permission. So who's giving this guy permission to take a lot of
Dominion voting
be invaded like this? Okay, the Dominion voting machine crap my rear. Guess what? And I know what the D stands for. The Dominion stands for the D. That's what they call it, Dominion with a D. The guy was talking on the radio here in South Florida. Double D means every time there's a double D going in the machine, the Democrats are getting like 4 or 5 votes. Okay? That's what the D stands for. That's why they call it Dominion. Why didn't they call it the Reaper? The Reaper stands for the Reaper machine where the Republicans get the vote. This is all Zog agents. And you know, these Zog, they're only 2% of our population, but they're definitely controlling our narrative, and they need to stop this nonsense because, like I called the earlier show, why would these Jews wouldn't want 2 million Muslims going into Jerusalem and marrying their women, would they? Well, why would these Israelis want 2 million Muslims to go in there and say, okay, we're going to take your Jewish women and we're going to have children with them? They sure wouldn't like that.
No, they wouldn't.
Like I said, Mike, these Afro-American women are not happy. You saw every commercial, you see a white, blonde-haired woman, a black man. Do you think the black women are happy about that? Hell no, they're not.
No, they're not.
Taking away their cultural identity. Exactly. And then you hear this guy from Carolina attacking me about, this guy's always talking about immigration is our number one linchpin. That's the only reason I think about people should be voting. More than anything, immigration, because we're going to be annihilating our country. We have right here in South Florida, the Miami Herald, like 13, 14 people living in one household, 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yes.
It's insane. Everywhere I can go a mile down to where I'm at right now, Mike, and I can show you houses if you came down here. And you go, what the heck? There'll be 10 cars parked in the yard. Like sardines, Mike. And this is what they want for our country. And I know all these people are talking about the food. There's going to be a food shortage. Why are you going to be importing millions of people that steal your food, to take over your farm and all that? Then you got that criminal Gates who's buying up all this farmland for what? And if one of his kids got killed by an illegal alien, he's sure to be pumping all his money he had into stopping this illegal invasion. All these liberals, licky, kissy, touchy-feely, dirty rats, these Democrats, that pig Pelosi and all of them. If one of their family members got hurt or killed by an illegal alien, they sure in the hell would they'd be, Bill, we can't have no more. Put a wall up. Give me a break. This is all a scam to wipe out the Northern European white males and females in this country. And they're even telling our white women to hate themselves. Work. Don't have babies. Don't work. Just go to work. You don't need to have children. Just go to work and then work 2 jobs to pay your mortgage. Yes. What nonsense. We can't even have medical care, good medical care in this country anymore because all these damn illegals. Who's kidding here? And that bubbly Biden should be arrested. He should be arrested. You know, this creep in Mississippi's trying to arrest Donald Trump for the resurrection in the Capitol. He should be arrested, and all the Democrats should be arrested for allowing sanctuary cities, Title 8. They should all be in handcuffs.
I agree.
And that's what this caller from North Carolina better understand. You say, socialism's so great. You want socialism, pal. Go to Cuba. You ever been to Cuba there? From Carolina, I have. I can tell you all about it. You got an hour? You want to put him on the phone with me? I'll talk to him on the phone. I'll talk right to that guy on the phone, Mike. I'm not afraid to talk to him. Every day it's unrelenting. He came from Jersey. If you want socialism, go back to New Jersey. You love it so much. If you love your communist socialism, go back to your state of Jersey. Don't be picking on me. I always try to call your show, Mike, to inform people what's going on. I live in South Florida. I see it every day. I see the whole area get taken over within a 30-year period. Was 78% of the population when I was in high school. Now it's down to 11%. Can you imagine that?
Yes.
Everywhere you turn, you don't even see your own kind anymore. It's like, where am I? I feel like I'm in a third world. Who's kidding who here? And these are the good ones, actually. I can't imagine what's going on in California. Mike, last time I was out there in 2008, I thought I was in Tijuana. I thought I was in Mexico. And that was a Golden State. That was milk and land, and the land of milk and honey. Now it's like it's like northern Mexico. And this guy's going to call in. If you want, why don't you go to Nicaragua and let those 3 Nicaraguans come and take your place in your state, or go back to Jersey? I don't have to be attacked because I brought up immigration. I don't need to put up with that. And as far as going back to bumbling Biden, this buffoon, he's going to allow 11 million illegals in here. Seriously, the Republicans would allow that.
Okay, Tom.
Like you said, Mike.
Tom. Yeah,
I'm a little. I drink a little coffee. I understand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're a little excited. I mean, we already covered the 11 million earlier in the show. People are criticizing you not because of your position on immigration. We all agree it is a serious, serious problem. May not be number 1 serious, but it's definitely up there in the top 5. But it's just that every time you call in, it's the same thing all over again. And, I get emails from people saying they basically know that they can go and take a break.
Look, I told you the other day, Mike, I didn't really want to talk about immigration for like a month, but he brought it up, and he's talking about Nicaragua and all that. I've been to Cuba, Mike. I know what it's like. I know what communism's all about. You say one word about there any kind of leadership in the Communist Party in Cuba, they will beat you to death, Mike. Okay?
Yep.
Well, they'll take you around. There's walls all over every city. Well, they'll take you out, put a blindfold, take a 22 bullet, and shoot you right in the back of the head, Mike. That's how ruthless it is if you go against their government. And Nicaragua's doing no better.
Tom, 22 wouldn't go through the back of the occipital bone. You'd have to go through the temporal. Anyway, I'm going to have to let you go here. The phone lines are loaded up, and I'm going to go to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, the rant gets old quick, right?
Yes, it does.
People don't like to hear depressing stuff over and over and over again. It's like going to a dentist and having someone drill your teeth.
Yes.
It's not a pleasant experience.
Yes.
I'm not saying I don't like Tom. I don't agree with what he's saying, but it's just, I'm sorry. That's the way it is. Anyway, Mike, are you aware of any test that will pick up?
Of any what?
Of any test.
Test.
That will determine if someone has COVID-19?
I'm not aware of any that has a high degree of accuracy. I know that the antibody test is fairly decent. The PCR test is almost junk.
Well, it is junk. It's not a diagnostic tool. And
no, it isn't. It was never intended to be.
Already had said that. Now, so if you know this, why do people continually say, well, they tested positive for COVID-19 when there is no test that will test for that live virus? It doesn't exist. It's like trying to it's like trying to say, does that person have a cold? How do you test for something? How do you test for a virus, a strain that continually, like a piece of DNA that continually evolves? You don't know what it's going to be. You know what I mean? It's like string theory or quantum mechanics. There's no way of knowing what this thing's going to do next. That's why we still suffer.
It's kind of a very loose analogy there. I do know that
it's very loose because it has to be that way.
Okay, the antibodies test, they're not testing for the virus. They're testing for what they believe are the antibodies produced by your by your immune system in the presence of something COVID-like.
Right. So that's only after the fact. So for someone to say
that's what it means if you've tested positive. There's no test that says you're going to get it next week.
No, there is none. So why is this constant barrage of, well, this person tested positive for COVID-19 when there's no test that exists that will say that someone has COVID-19? I don't care what the cycle rate is. I'm not concerned with that. Because that PCR test is not a diagnostic tool.
No, it isn't. But if you run it for enough cycles, you'll get stuff that shows up that aren't really there to begin with. And that's been one of the big problems with the false positives on the PCR test is the high number of cycles being run. Yeah.
And they call that asymptomatic when in actual fact that's pure BS.
Yes, it is.
And it's just coincidental that, now that Biden's in power, and, this has been talked about to death, that, everything's going down because they changed the rules. They moved the goalposts.
Yes, they did.
But in the end, it doesn't mean anything because there's no test to pick up a live virus. It just doesn't exist. That's the way it is.
Okay.
We haven't evolved that far with medicine. I mean, I've been looking at this for weeks now, and I can't find anything that'll pick up a live virus.
Okay.
Especially one that's mutating. It's always changing. By the time you think you've isolated it, it changed. So now where's it gone? How's it changed its DNA? And this is the problem with a lot of this stuff.
In the case of COVID, it's RNA.
Yes.
Which is more unstable than DNA.
Yeah. So this is why it makes it impossible to even talk about this sort of nonsense. It's a hoax. And it's brutal.
Well, there's something out there that
what they're doing is baffling us with BS.
Well, I think what it is the reason we don't have any flu this season is we have a seasonal flu making its way through the population and killing people, and they have simply relabeled that COVID, to keep the fear mongering up and get us to wear our masks and, stay 6 feet apart and just sort of keep that fear porn going.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly it, Mike. And just before I leave, because it's starting to get long now, this Bill Gates with this hydrogen-powered, little boat there.
Yes.
Where's he getting the hydrogen?
Well, that's always going to be an issue. It's like all these people who drive electric cars and say, I'm being environmentally friendly and clean. And no, you're not, because the electricity that's charging your electric car is, for the most part, still coming from oil and coal-fired power plants. And because it's going through that transformation into your battery and back out, it's not even as efficient as if you put the oil in your car and burned it directly for mechanical energy.
Yeah, it's putting the cart before the horse.
Yes.
There was a chance to think this through and do this so intelligently that it would be so easy to transition to electric vehicles. Instead of gas stations, you have charging stations where they actually just slam a new battery into your car.
Yes.
And, you scale these things. They're all the same size. It's all the same. But no, we have all this greed and all this corruption and stupidity that runs rampant, and that's what it is. I'm starting to, Mike, I got to go. I'm starting to rant. I'm starting to sound like Tom, and that's not right. I appreciate your time,
It's
Mike.
fate worse than
Thank
death.
you very much.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to
Thanks,
switch
Mike.
over to Jim. You got it. We're going to switch over to Jim in Montana. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Hey, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're on the air.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Hey, that last caller just then,
Yes.
100% right. He just broke the law. He told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
My God, he is 100% right. It's bull crap. We're supposed to believe these COVID death and illness numbers from the same media that has been lying through their teeth for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're breaking it down. It's like 80-90% of the stuff that comes out of their mouth is a lie. So it's not just the COVID thing that is bullcrap. There might be something out there getting people sick, but the numbers, anybody would have to bring it. It's a lie. There's no way those numbers should be right. Well,
no, they aren't. Even the CDC has admitted the initial numbers were overstated, to put it politely. And that's why when Biden was sworn into office, they changed the rules, they moved the goalposts, and that's why all of a sudden the COVID numbers are dropping, for which Biden is taking credit.
And more people are starting to see the facade that is COVID. And it's not just COVID. It's all this other stuff and all the lies that Biden promised them. Okay? I got news for you. It's not just the COVID it's the whole thing.
Yes.
And I've been noticing that people have been waking up faster than ever since this Capitol thing. People are looking at this Capitol thing that had their head in the sand, and then they saw this Capitol, event go on. They're like, "What is going on?" That turned some heads. Now they're looking.
Yes.
This direction. Now they're looking. Like, what is going on in this country? And I have noticed on the message boards, intellectuals, more educated people on the message boards making their voice heard.
Yes.
And the Democrats and stuff that aren't real Democrats. I've got friends that are Democrats. Those people in Congress are not real Democrats. Okay? Just say communists. But they were the response to the well-educated conservative comments are just a joke. They're killing themselves with these comments. And I say, to Tom, he has some great points, and it has nothing to do with race. It's just how would these countries feel if we just started pouring all our criminals and all our homeless and all and all our organized crime?
Well, the other countries won't allow it. At one point it was suggested that the United States adopt the same immigration policy as Mexico, and of course, immediately the open borders people started screaming, "You're being racist, you're being racist." And my reply to that is, I can't be racist. Illegal isn't a race.
Exactly.
Okay.
The contradiction
All right.
is being exposed.
Okay.
Pull me over.
Jim?
One more thing.
No, I got to let you go. We got callers on the line. We got lines open, 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and we've got open phone lines right now. If you want to call on in, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. First of all, hey, Tom, listen, man. Take the marbles out of your, the same marbles that you got in your mouth, take them out of your ears, and maybe you would have heard what I said yesterday, okay, about socialism. I said there are some countries where socialism actually works. I'm not talking about communist Cuba. I'm talking about Nicaragua, which is run by a Christian who outlaws abortion, who outlaws same-sex marriage, and I'm sure would not allow somebody to cut their kids' private part off and make them think they're going to make them into a girl, or a doctor to perform such a horrendous crime. Okay, I'm sure that wouldn't be allowed in Daniel Ortega's Nicaragua, or, by the way, in Lukashenko's Belarus, okay, which is also a socialist country. And by the way, in Belarus, Lukashenko was offered money by the IMF to go along with the COVID nonsense. He told them where to stick it, okay? That's what I call a nationalist. I don't care if it's socialism. You got that, Tom? I would take that kind of socialism, Tom, rather than these lockdowns and having a scumbag like Bill Gates dictate to us what we should and shouldn't do, all right? And by the way, Tom, Bill Gates is a Northern European white male, all right? The old family comes from the Rockefellers, comes from IBM, Thomas Watson, and also Dan. Just to let you know, I know what you are, Dan. You're a eugenist. That is a Nazi, okay? You admit it yourself. You admire Margaret Sanger. I don't admire her. I think she's a criminal, okay? I think Margaret Sanger was a criminal. I think the people that follow her are criminals. I think the worst kind of scum imaginable are Nazi eugenists, okay? Unlike, they're even worse than communism, because in many cases they don't even believe you should have a right to live, okay? Let's talk about Hitler. Hitler not only wanted to exterminate the Jews, he also wanted to exterminate the gypsies.
Yes.
He also wanted to conquer Russia and much of Eastern Europe, and basically enslave the population and give the Germans Lebensraum. In other words, he thought the Germans were a superior race and deserved to occupy these Slavic lands and turn the people into slaves and kill whoever they didn't need. He was a eugenist, and he was supported by eugenists, as you pointed out yesterday.
Yeah,
Margaret Sanger.
Yep.
The Bush family, the Prescott Bush, the Harrimans, they all supported him. All Northern European white Christians, by the way, not Christians. I don't think they were for any kind of religion. Okay, they were demons. Okay, Tom and Dan, these were not these, but they were all Northern Europeans of Northern European extent, or in the case of the Rothschilds, Ashkenazi Jews.
Okay.
All right? You got that, Tom? You got that, Dan? There is nothing more evil than eugenicism, okay? Nothing. I'm sorry. And Bill Gates is a prime example, and so, by the way, is Klaus Schwab, also a Northern European. As a matter of fact, I would know better. He's a little bit too young. He was born in 1938. I looked him up. So you couldn't say he was an ex-Nazi. He was at least he wasn't a member of Hitler's Nazis. But he might as well be. Okay? These people want to kill people. They want to kill billions of us. Look at the guy at the Georgia Guidestones.
We want to get rid of the useless eaters, as George Bush said. The useless eaters, yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're all useless eaters to them, except for these billionaires, except for a handful of billionaires. We're all useless eaters. You understand that, Tom? Including you and me, including Dan. All right? That's all we are to these people. And we better wake up. That's all I'm saying. Okay? It's not about socialism. All right? I would take Lukashenko as my president right now rather than Beijing Biden. Okay?
Yes. I would agree.
Or Harris or any of them. I would gladly have Lukashenko come right over here and become president of the United States. Or Daniel Ortega. Or one being president, the other being vice president. Our problem is these predatory, capitalist eugenicists. That's the problem, Mike.
Yep.
Okay? They are a threat to not only this country, they are a threat to the world. Much more of a threat than a few million people coming over the border. Okay? If any, I don't even know who would want to come over this border right now. From what I understand,
well,
Mexico,
apparently they're lined up there. They're being offered. What was it? Presley was saying they want to give the illegal immigrants $2,000 a month. That's going to be pretty attractive.
Well, here's it is. They'll take the 2,000 and then go back. Okay, that's what they probably do. But I don't think many of them come in from Mexico anyway. Mostly Central. All right, Mike, I hear the music. So.
Yeah, the music is there. I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. Phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. I'd just like to say, with the last caller there, I think the FBI statistics would greatly disagree with his assertion about these illegals and coming in here, and they're just a couple million, and all these socialist countries would be better. And it's great because everybody picks out their favorite socialist just like they do their favorite, Republican or Democrat, But let's get rid of them all but this one. Hitler's people picked Hitler because they liked Hitler. And that's good enough for me. If that's who they want to lead
There was some shenanigans there as well, the enabling acts, the Reichstag fire and so forth.
Well, that's who they chose regardless. They had opportunities to get rid of them. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not our concern or anybody's concern. If that's who they pick there, no more than it is the United Nations or anybody getting involved in our election or any other nation being involved in ours. That's what they picked, and that's fine. And Hitler was Man of the Year. Let's not make any mistake about what he did with the economy.
In fact, Stalin had the honor twice.
Well, okay, so then, the caller in North Carolina should be happy when he picks these type of socialist and socialist countries. But, back in this other caller with this, I don't know what you call this stuff, limpus americanus. If somebody takes a swipe at you, you got the right to fire back. You got the right to say, wait a minute, you mentioned this is what I said. And if the caller doesn't like that, then don't listen to it. But don't tell somebody, oh, I don't want to hear this or that. Tom or Marco or Dan or anybody else has the right to defend themselves against something they feel is erroneous. That's what this show's about. It's a platform for dialogue.
Yes.
So, and as far as this Republican thing, I'm for no parties. I think there should be no parties. It should be based on merit on who you are. Get rid of the parties because that's where the corruption, in my opinion, begins. You get the RNC, the DNC. Yeah, and they got their platforms. But, I'm thrilled that this Republican Party might disintegrate. Start the Trump party or whatever party you got, but that's fine with me, because how many years have we had to sit there and take candidates of a lesser value that we couldn't tolerate at all? And now they might have to take somebody who could fall in line and be a possible true conservative or constitutionalist that they might have to just vote for because the other side's so repulsive. I mean, this is the party that made it, they made you have to vote for a McCain or a Romney, and now you might have to actually vote for somebody who understands the Constitution and sound money. I think that's a good idea. And, on another issue here, Michael.
Yeah.
Why were there no investigations into the troublemakers of this activity on January 6th?
That is a very good question, and a lot of Republicans are starting to put pressure on Nancy Pelosi, because apparently Donald Trump had offered to activate the National Guard well in advance and was turned down. And of course, remember the story where the National Guard was ready to go on the ground, and they were told, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. And so, they're starting to really look into, what happened. And I think to most of us, it's pretty obvious it was another piece of U.S. government theater.
But not only that, if the federal authorities had prior knowledge and they had informants and they're finding these people now worked for them, okay, I think the questions are, where did they get their orders? Who's running the operation? Because other than that, we get all these, operations, crossfire hurricanes and all this nonsense. Yes. Those organizations should all have been brought right in and immediately, questioned to the nth degree by this Congress and Senate. But, the Republican Party's just finally getting around to this a month and a half later. To bringing up somebody, we might possibly want to have questions or have an investigation, should have happened immediately. How come the Republicans aren't stopping Biden the way they interfered with Trump at every step of the way? Even when the Republicans had the majority, they were interfering with Trump.
Yes, they were.
You and I have both said we've never seen a true Trump administration yet, because he was so stifled with everything. We thought this would be the time we'd get it, where Trump could pin his ears back and be the Trump that we all hoped he would be. But, these are questions that we need answered. Who are behind these things? Who are behind these shenanigans? None of these FBI agents, none of these Strzok, none of these guys, nobody's in jail, nobody's charged. This is just okay. And both parties think it's all just okay. And I think those are the issues that need to be resolved before we go on with worrying about who's going to represent the party. We can't get any representation out of any parties. And therefore, like I say, I'm against the party situation altogether. I think parties should all be dissolved, and it should just be on merit. And then you don't have to worry who's a socialist and who's this one.
You haven't gotten the memo. Merit is now a sign of white supremacy.
Yeah. Well, but get rid of the parties, and I think you get rid of the RNC, DNC dictatorship, and people can be people. You know what I mean? But I think these people should be absolutely very peeved. I mean, Bernie got it stolen from him twice.
Yes.
Trump got this election stolen. But in the end, it's the people who lose, because that's one of the only things we have where we can ensure, our rights under the Constitution are to be able to pick a leader of our choice, one man, one vote.
You're absolutely correct.
Interference.
We have lost control of our own government. We are living in a situation of taxation without representation, because the government is still taking our taxes, but we are no longer in a position to be able to choose who represents us in Congress and the White House in terms of how that money is going to be spent, which means it's going to continue to flow to Israel and the war machine for the most part.
Exactly. And in addition to that, and I'll let you go after this, I wish this Congress or Senate, somebody would have called investigations into this Supreme Court, especially when they found out that information about the gentleman who overheard the Supreme Court saying, well, we can't enact the law because somebody might riot. Hey, that should have been congressional hearings right there, in my opinion. They should bring Roberts, shut the court down, stop it, make him appear, and get to the bottom of these issues. But by not confronting these issues, we're not getting anywhere. And we need answers to this stuff. And with that, have a great show, Michael. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. And I don't know if that story about the Supreme Court justices saying we can't do this or there'll be riots, it shows a certain lack of courage, because if the truth is going to cause a riot, then you're just going to have a riot, because I do not give my consent to live under a government that lies to me and conceals things from me. It says right there in the Declaration of Independence, governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and I do not give out my consent lightly. All right, we're going to switch over to James in Vancouver. Hello, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, good afternoon. Is it true that Bill Gates has got this great big yacht?
He apparently has just bought it. Yes, it's about 300 some odd feet long, and it's powered by hydrogen.
Then all I can say is load forward tubes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Enemy below. Yeah. I'm glad people are coming around on this COVID-19 to see that it's such a fake. It was a fake from the beginning. Back in 2019, I thought it might have merit. But like I said before, we got a real 400,000+ Chinese population, and I couldn't see any evidence of it at all. Mm-hmm. And I was teaching at that time, I was teaching the grandchildren of the Red Guard daily. Okay, and there was just nothing happening. So to me, it's all been a fake. They've got some motive to mess society up, and the banks are no doubt behind it, and the whole deal, the whole, they want to cause, this upheaval, see. So I'm glad people are, kind of coming around, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, anyway, so that's the end of it, and I wish Bill Gates good sailing.
I don't think it has sail. If it's hydrogen powered, he's probably not spending much time as a rag setter. I prefer sails. Claire and I were married under sails. We got to celebrate New Year's 1999 in Sydney Harbor on a square-rigged, 3-masted ship right in the middle of the harbor with the fireworks going off all around us. And that was amazing. And I'm definitely a rag setter.
Yeah, very, very romantic.
Yes.
Anyway, my submarine runs on diesel fuel, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, and thank you for the phone call. Good luck and good hunting. And we'll go to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking the call, Mike. There's a I don't usually recommend NPR, but they did a great documentary on Margaret Sanger and all the controversy around that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just have an open mind and look at that, she's not some demon. They were trying to promote healthy families. They were trying to promote more educated, productive people breeding, and then taking the poor, lower IQ, unproductive people and dissuading them to breed. Now, that would have a great effect on people in the long run. So you can take that to the extreme, but I would remind the caller from North Carolina, before World War II started, did the eugenicists murder every Orthodox priest in Russia? Did they have the Holodomor and intentionally starve 4 million people? Did they kill every Cossack? So there's really no comparison between Hitler's eugenics program. You can point out some injustice there, but compared to the Bolshevik Revolution and what was going on that led up to that war, it's nothing. So, what do you say? And what do you say? He brought up Northern Europeans. What about China right now and their one-child policy?
Yes.
Because they don't want to end up in a future like Soylent Green, right?
Yes.
I mean, tell them to watch Soylent Green, the movie. You want a world like that where there's no animals left, no rhinoceroses, no elephants, no natural habitat, just seas of people, and then eventually eating each other. That's what the callers from North Carolina, that's my view. So Chinese are practicing a form of eugenics in a way, and it's, it's not that extreme, so I would just, that's my point of view on that. So, but
okay,
that's about it. I'm not really even mad. I just feel sorry for him. You can't. I don't know, this whole anti-eugenics thing. It's can be taken to the extreme. Family planning.
Well, the problem is that it can be abused. I mean, Margaret Sanger, when Planned Parenthood was first set up, it was definitely targeting the black population for abortions, and I don't think that was a particularly noble ambition. Believe it or not, my show, Dan, let me talk. When Mensa was first set up, part of its rationale was to make sure that high IQ men and high IQ women were socializing with each other, leading to possible marriage and brilliant offspring, which actually did work to an extent. But there were a lot of women who would come around to the conventions and basically catch some of the Mensa members to try and have brilliant children. You can use your imagination to fill in the rest there. Yeah.
Right. Well, real quick though, with the black, if you look at how many black males are incarcerated and the number of white women who have been raped and murdered by black males since the breakup of the family and all this stuff, that's been pushed by our more Bolshevik. They're not eugenicists, they're reverse eugenicists, but if there were black eugenicists as well, and if they would have done a better job at promoting the good and dissuading the bad, maybe you wouldn't have the high murder rate in all these American cities right now. Maybe you wouldn't have like 50,000 dead white women raped and murdered by black people with very low IQs. Why should we shouldn't promote people who like single moms with 3 different kids from 3 different guys. We know the criminality rate, or prostitutes, drug addicts.
Well, one of the abuses of the 1930s eugenic program was the forced sterilization of women who had a child out of wedlock or who were ladies of the evening. They were literally sterilized against their will, and I that was one of the ways the eugenics movement got such a negative reputation.
Well, yeah, but did it not make sense? If you have a prostitute plopping out a kid every year with different dads, with no dad, what are the chances those kids are going to end up criminals and maybe kill someone in your family? It's kind of like, that's,
well, it's
again,
not,
some of it's common sense.
Hang on, it's not the prostitutes who are cranking out, a baby every 9 months. I mean, for that sort of behavior, you need to look at the welfare queens, which we certainly have a lot of, especially in California, who are there basically creating babies to get more in their welfare checks every month. Most prostitutes do not want to have children simply because it cuts into their work hours and their profitability. And so they'll do whatever it takes, condoms and whatnot, to prevent that.
Well, yeah, that. Well, most responsible prostitutes. But
yeah.
How many of them are responsible? How many of them are just crackheads?
The ones I used to know were pretty responsible. One of them wound up owning a shopping center. Anyway, Dan, we got to let you go and take a break for commercials. We got more callers waiting right after the break. Welcome back to our show here, the last segment of our program today, and we're going to go to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, when you're talking about eugenics, we should remember that Charles Manson was born, his mother was a prostitute. And likewise, in the case of Samuel Little, who was one of the most prolific American serial killers who died naturally at the end of 2020. He was the son of a prostitute also, and he is linked to the deaths of as many as 93 women that have been murdered by this person because the government refuses to adopt any type of eugenics policies because our government is run by people like Mark from North Carolina who doesn't want to do any eugenics because that would be like Hitler. And so we do the complete opposite. And then we reap the rewards from it. And then we wonder, why is this a dumbed-down culture? Why is everybody behaving like this? Because we don't have the testicular fortitude to maintain Western civilization.
Okay.
You know, and to really think that we're run by eugenesis now just because several wealthy people like Charles Schwab or Bill Gates might have some eugenics ideas is ridiculous when the West, not run by Nazis, but run by people like Mark, bring in migrants from third world countries and flood their countries and make their native stock into a minority through this migration and, you know, have this diversity and all of this. This is not the eugenicists running this world. Now, back in the 80s,
hang on a second. What if the eugenicists have taken as their goal the dumbing down of the general population to basically break us into the Morlocks and the Eloi to steal from the time machine? You know, it's an automatic assumption that anybody who's practicing eugenics is doing it for the betterment of the general population. I think that's may not be the case.
Well, that would be contrary to eugenic theory then, you know, because eugenic theory would ultimately be to basically through mate selection and arranged marriages, we breed a healthier, stronger, better people, and therefore a healthier, more aesthetic culture. And I think that's the ultimate goal of that. And by the way, I would argue when you look at modern culture today, it is so degenerate in comparison to Hitler's Nazi Germany. That's without a doubt. Or even, for that matter, Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. It's way more degenerate.
The Nazis got pretty decadent there, you know, as the war was raging, if you've ever seen Cabaret. But yeah, our civilization is definitely decadent. The rest of the world is pointing at our country and wondering, you know, what led to this decline. As a people, we have certainly lost our moral compass. Anyway, Paul, we're coming up here on the end of the show. In fact, there's the music right now, so thank you for the phone call. My apologies to those waiting on hold who did not get on the air. Please call in early tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller, and I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. Stay warm and safe tonight and for the rest of the week, and we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.